Hi, one thing for sure, I will not be talking about money or financial issues today. I'll be talking about the joy of learning and sharing your learning with others. That has been part of my experience throughout growing up and my professional career. Today, in the deaf community, very exciting things are happening. We have deaf doctors, deaf attorneys, 300 deaf attorneys. We have PhD students, we have a deaf CPA, deaf software engineers, more and more deaf teachers and principals, deaf superintendents. A lot is going on. And when you look back and compare over the last 20 years, you can see a lot of progress has been made. Yet, we still have challenges in the deaf community. First of all, the deaf educational system, we're seeing deaf schools closing. And more deaf children are moving into mainstream programs. Those children are isolated out there in the educational system. And is the mainstream program a better education for deaf students? That remains to be seen. But is the traditional educational system ready to meet the challenges of today's world? And that creates a lot of emphasis on testing, which leads to challenges. A lot of testing is emphasized in the educational system in order to graduate. And part of the deaf community has what I call an island of knowledge, where some individuals may go off and study legal issues, accounting, science, all these various areas of information, which is great, but we don't see all of that coming together, where the legal issues are being shared with the scientific community or the educational community. And all of that is not coming together. I don't see that happening. And I see many challenges within them. As to what we can do about those challenges moving forward, we can look at those challenges through the perspective of the challenges we all face today. You perhaps went and learned some technical skills, and perhaps that was good enough at one point. What we're seeing today is that knowledge in one area is not good enough. Cisco, which is $1 billion company, the vice president of talent management, is responsible for the recruitment of those individuals who might fit in with the Cisco Corporation. What they're saying is that high school graduates, college graduates are not ready for a global society. They may know a lot about one area, but that's not enough. Cisco says they need knowledge plus. They need to know a lot about the one area, but also have critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, collaboration skills, the sharing of ideas, and a global perspective. This is the vice president of talent management at Cisco. And you take that and multiply that over thousands of people in the same position. People who are in positions of hiring or recruitment for companies out there are screaming for the kind of workers who have knowledge plus these other skills I mentioned. Today's traditional educational system is not meeting that demand. There's too much emphasis on other things such as testing. And so currently we are not meeting those demands. How do we as a community better satisfy that demand? that had a big impact on my perspective of learning as I grew. On the college campus, my father was a philosophy teacher, and his friends and co-workers in different areas of study, such as religious, psychology, Spanish, science, political science, were all on one campus. And so I found myself learning and exposed to a variety of information that created what I call a portfolio of ideas. There were many wonderful ideas that I was exposed to. And what's more important to me, the ideas were important, but what was more important to me was how those ideas were applicable to the real world. Yeah, an idea can be good, but not be applicable. And then what is applicable, we can then see what's possible. We can apply ideas, some may not work, but let's apply them and see what happens. So part of this presentation for me is wanting to share with you a model of what's possible in the deaf community. A model that promotes continuous education and the sharing of knowledge. This model is called intellectualship, intellectual entrepreneurship, which is happening here at UT. Great ideas are happening here at UT, it looks like. Back in 1987, this idea came about through the idea of a person who was focused on developing expertise and knowledge in one area, and developing what I call unique intellectual capital. Like, this is my area of knowledge. The E, people often think of the E as meaning business. You know, they have an idea that they want to proceed with in developing a business. But it's really a process of innovation. In any setting, political, economic, academic, and the unique intellectual capital, along with the innovation, once that merges, creates a new way of learning, a new, let's say, exposure of knowledge. And there are many possibilities behind this. A few days ago, a teacher at another school called me through a video phone, and I could see this person was very knowledgeable of finance, cash flow, and investment. And this teacher wanted to establish a financial literacy curriculum to better teach all deaf children issues of money, and wanted to establish this curriculum and start it at this school, which I thought was a great idea. And then we thought of developing this curriculum and then licensing this curriculum for other schools to follow to get the information out there. That's another good idea of IE coming together. So once we develop this curriculum, get it in this school, then it can move forward and spread out from there. Not just a curriculum, but there would be a website and video material to go along with it, so that mainstream children would have access to this information as well. This idea has a lot of potential. IE, I know, is a very broad term that I'm using. It's very abstract, but it is a good model. And what could work within the deaf community. Why I think it has potential to work within the deaf community are three reasons. The deaf community, as you know, is small. We're always saying, oh, you know him, oh, but I know him through so-and-so. And we live in a very small world. How many times have we said that throughout our lives? It is really a small world. Oh, you know him. And then every person has unique connections with other people. So that makes it a very small community in order for knowledge to spread. Why would we want to keep that to ourselves? It would be important to share that knowledge and see what happens. Secondly, the internet is much more available. Growing up in the 80s when I was young, there was no such thing as the internet. I think it actually started in 93, 94. I remember being a college student and becoming instantly addicted and immersed in the world of the internet. And my parents would have to tell me, it's time for dinner. And just the simple process of putting content out there is there today. And for young deaf children, they have become very adept at using the internet. I call them net progressors. They can go from the internet to paging, instant messaging, they're well wired. So imagine what could happen if more content was shared through the internet. Thirdly, video. The use of ASL through video is powerful. We are seeing many great teachers out there. We're seeing people in certain content areas, math, political science, or religious information is immediately viewable, and I think there's a lot of possibility there. There are some examples of how it could really work. This TED.com, how many of you have been to see TED.com? Many, great. TED started back in 1984. It wasn't well known. It was a small group of people who knew about it and came together. Then in 2006, sometime before 2006, it became more and more well known. And it happened very simply because they put their notes from the conferences on the internet. At that point, TED became well known worldwide. And that resulted in 100 million visits to the website in 2006. At that time, captioning was not available. It was not captioned. It wasn't until a year or two later that through an open translation project, captioning became available, not just for people who were deaf, but for people from other countries who spoke foreign languages. All of the captioning was done by volunteers. In 2006, video became popular, and then it became more widely viewed. So think about 100 million people viewing that website and the knowledge and the ideas that are being shared instantly. Another, at MIT, it's a great university in Boston, Massachusetts. It's very hard to get admittance. Only 10% of people can be admitted. And if you get in, it's very expensive to attend. $53,000 a year for tuition. Since 2001, MIT instituted an open software called courseware. The purpose of courseware was for faculty, professors, staff to put course content, notes, and ideas on a website. People could visit the website, you wouldn't have to register, and it would be free. This started in 2001 and still exists today. It's very popular. 1,920 courses are posted on this website, and over 90% of the faculty are involved in this process. So the professors are very willing to share their ideas openly. And these are great examples of IE. Thirdly, there's a high school in San Diego called High Tech High. HTH, I guess. High Tech High. It's a very new type of high school, very interesting. No emphasis on preparing for tests, multiple choice testing. The goal is to see children well prepared for the real world, for a global society. The emphasis is on each child having a portfolio of ideas and projects, digital, everything is digital, it's all web-based. In this portfolio, they would have all of their ideas and projects, and then during their senior year of high school, they would do an internship. For example, whatever career they have planned, they would go out and do that. So high school and work is working together. Traditionally, they worked separately. We're trying to blend those into this, or this high school is, into this 1 year of their senior project. And it can be whatever their interests are in. Once they get through this, it's published on a website, and they're able to show their work openly. And those who started this high school were two groups, business leaders and community leaders who came together, over 40 people who worked together to establish this high school. This high school has been very successful. When you look at the graduates and where they go to college, the listing is quite impressive. Many Ivy League schools, state universities, it's very impressive. 100% of those who graduate from that high school attend college. And they do well on their tests. So the idea of preparing for testing, there's always another better solution, it seems. Lastly, I'm going to talk about an IE program here at UT. It's very interesting. We have this exchange of ideas. But what it's made up of is mostly of students who are first-generation students, meaning they were the first in their families to attend a university, and then a variety of cultural groups. So I can see clearly that the desire is for them to develop their own unique intellectual capital and share it with others. There's no exclusivity. Everyone shares and gives back to the community. So I see a lot of potential, and I think the kind of society that children and adults too aspire to will share this principle of a knowledge plus society, a culture of continuous learning, learning that never stops. It doesn't only take place in the classroom, it happens everywhere, out on the streets, in the coffee house, everywhere, and through the internet. And learning that is open to everyone, not limited to only a few. It's accessible to everyone. And new types of learning providers will have to evolve. Whether they will come from our traditional system or like this high-tech high. There are lots of potential ideas. And with these things going on, I can see where the deaf community, even though it is small, these are things, that's something that we can look at as an advantage. We can get the word out. Thank you.